Hello, I'm Insonia, and today I'm going to be giving you a guide to the new Enhancement Shaman. As you all know, the pre-patch just dropped and a lot of things have changed. Let's get straight into what's changed. Weapon brands are gone. We replaced it with our old friends Frost Shock and Flame Shock, back from the dead. Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning. Lightning Bolt never really left, but it felt like it did since we didn't use it. And also the biggest change, Maelstrom as a resource, gone. Swapped back to its predecessor, Maelstrom weapon stacks, which go very nicely with those lightning bolts and chain lightnings like we just mentioned. Wind Fury weapon and Flame Tongue are both weapon imbues again, which is great. And speaking of Wind Fury, that totem, good time. Our stat priority is almost unchanged except for one little difference, and that is that we are haste heavy. It gives us cooldown reduction. It helps fill in those little gaps for when we occasionally have downtime, followed by crit and verse in equal proportions. I personally prefer to have crit on my gear for PvE. It just feels better, although I would say that versatility is more valuable all round because it also comes with a damage reduction counterpart, and I would definitely take verse over crit if you do any kind of PvP. Mastery is the last one of the pack. However, it does increase your nature damage, which is great for AoE situations, so maybe take a bit of mastery into your Mythic Plus and AoE gear. I'm sure there's a magic number for those of you who like to min-max like I do. I don't know that number yet because this is all fresh. So we'll see what that is when it comes out. Moving swiftly on to talents. At the moment we have two builds, one for single target and one for cleave and AoE. We'll start with our single target build. In the first row, we're going to be taking Lashing Flames to beef out that flame shot damage by 100%, which is crazy when you consider that up until the pre-patch, we basically ignored Lava Lash when we could, in favour of all Storm Strikes all day. In our second row, it's going to be Storm Flurry, which has a 25% chance to basically do an overload effect on your Storm Strike, kind of like our Elemental brothers who do that all day. I was personally hoping to see some hot hand play, but the maths just isn't in its favour right now at all. For your level 30 talent row, this doesn't affect your DPS, it's a utility row. I personally like Spirit Wolf on this one, purely for the mobility. The less time you spend running to and away from something, the sooner you can get back to bonking it with a stick. This next talent row makes me a little bit sad, because I just love how Hailstorm feels in all situations. But when it comes to single target, Elemental Assault just flat out wins, and it keeps on winning all the way to the DPS bank, where it will invest on whatever the next big thing is, and it'll do DPS to it. The 40 row is another utility row, focusing on various different things. Nature's Guardian should be taken if it's a heavy damage fight where you're likely going to get dropped low and you don't need any mobility. Throw Lunge is my go-to, because I'm selfish and I love mobility. Listen, you'd be selfish too if you spent as long as I have playing a fucking wheelchair. I mean DK. Lastly is Windrush Totem. That's group mobility and should be used when the whole group needs to go somewhere, like on Carapace. Now this next row is interesting because there's technically two choices, but really there's only one. The first and more viable option is good old Thundering. It slaps hard, it has a mini stun, it's simple to use, you know it, I knew it, let's move on. The next is something we borrowed from Elemental, and that's Stormbringer. Now this has potential when played in combination with Earth and Spike, which is from our next row, but this combination is very costly because you would have to use your Maelstrom weapon stacks in order to cast a spell for instantly. And I just don't think that's a good use of resources when compared to just how easy Sundering is and how it fits into your rotation and how it doesn't cost you my stacks. Now for the final row, unfortunately our Elemental Wolves got nerfed when going into the pre-patch, so we won't be taking our Rainbow Dogs with us right now. Sorry guys, you just don't do the damage. Our second choice we spoke about a second ago. On paper, Urban Spike sounds great. It's not when you can take Ascendance. Did you ever just feel like letting go for 15 seconds and just...
Wait, I started blasting. Bang! Bang! No, I don't see so good, so I missed.
Ascendant is just single target fights, best friend. You ignore armor, everything you press resets Storm Strike, and if you're taking the talents that we mentioned above, it is going to slap. Now for AoE, luckily we don't have to go through every row again on the AoE side of things since we're only making 2 changes. The first one is on our first row, and that is Forceful Winds. Since we won't be focused on Flame Shock anywhere near as much in AoE, we're just going to be bouncing around about 4 spells. This one is far more intrusive on that, and if anything, it's just going to make us do more damage. Which brings us to the second talent, down at row 35, and this is my favourite new talent in the whole game, Hailstorm. No, not the band. Now I've said things slap a few times in this guide, but Hailstorm is a fucking beast. Whenever you consume 5 Maelstrom weapon stacks, you get 5 stacks of Hailstorm, which increases your Frost Shock's damage by 35% for each stack you used, which is 175% for the full 5, and it fucking cleaves. I mean, it's going to tear you in half. If you're just learning Shaman, I would suggest this build, as you'll learn the basics of the class in a fun manner that I personally love. The only thing I would change is I would take Feral Lunge because I like my mobility. Okay, single target rotation. Make sure you have Wind Fury down and Flame Shock up. Your priority will then be Storm Strike, Lightning Bolt, Lava Lash. However, Lava Lash will have a higher priority than Lightning Bolt if you need to refresh your Flame Shock debuff. Not the debuff for Flame Shock, the debuff that increases Flame Shock's damage. Other than that, Frost Shock and Crash Lightning are filler for single target. AoE is a lot easier. You use Crash Lightning to get the buff that allows your Lava Lash and Storm Strike to cleave, but I would favour Storm Strike since you've got some talents that you will have taken even in AoE spec that do more damage with that spell. And then you'll get your 5 Maelstrom stacks, your Chain Lightning, which will buff your Crash Lightning, but you'll also have your Hailstorm stacks from using the Chain Lightning. So you'll push that out there, and it just becomes a nice little feedback loop. You crash, you strike, you chain, you Hailstorm. And it's just a perfect circle. It is so satisfying to do. It really is. Thank you everybody for watching this. I put a lot of effort into this video, so please be kind. Consider subbing if you want to see more of my content. If there's any specs or classes you want to learn about, or rather, make me learn about to pass on the information to you, then let me know. I already have Elemental Shaman coming, and all the DK specs are also coming, so you don't need to suggest those. Bye.